In a research in 2021, the augmented reality market was put at $14.8 billion. And the research says by 2026, the market is going to be at $61 billion. So our journey started about 6 years back when we were all brainstorming about our next product. And we came upon one big problem. Our office is headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. So our CEO was here, and we were all discussing about various ideas. And we saw there is a big gap here in the language, the way the language start from birth. If we take our our mother tongue, the mother tongue is taught even before we go to the school. By the time a child goes to the school, he's completely thorough in his language. But when it comes to English, he first learns the alphabets, the words, sentences, and then to speak. By the time all this happens, there is an inhibition in the child to speak out in English. We found this gap and we wanted to correct this. Then we went into studies and went through a lot of studies like Gardner's multiple learning theories, Bloom's taxonomy, and learning pyramids and everything. We found that a very interesting thing is we could redesign the way the language is taught. Usually the languages should be taught in an LSRW: listen, speak, read, write. But in India, especially in terms of English, the order is reversed. Children first learn to read, write, and then speak and listen. So there is a complete confusion in terms of language. So this is where we brought in the language, and then we coupled it with augmented reality and came our product. So here what we do is we teach children absolutely nothing about alphabets, no writing, no reading. They only get to play with the product, and the product is based on Android and iOS phones, but it can be projected onto screens for multiple children at schools. Now the children only learn English as a language, not as a subject. So by the time they actually come to a stage where they have to learn the language, they are completely well versed in the language and the fear for the language is gone. We have launched this product recently in US. The flavor there is a bit different because they already know to speak English, so the flavor there changes. But it's been received very well. We are working with some of the big heads in industry. We are working with the creative directors of Walt Disney and other industries and teachers and various special educationists. The product has been very well received, and we are working on that. The second is industrial maintenance. That is another key point that we found can be addressed in terms of augmented reality. Imagine buying a car, and if you can really get to see your car or your house even before you buy it or even before it is built, how good would that be? That is what we are bringing into industrial maintenance. Even before a maintenance guy gets into the industry or into a specific section, if he can visualize what he's going to see there, what the problem is going to be, what tools he will need, what maintenance schedules he has to follow, that's going to be great. So we are building something similar to this for the industries. There are more products that we are working on. It's a very exciting industry, augmented reality. But these two products are our key, and we are launching both of them in the US. The education product is already launched, and we are working on the industrial maintenance product. Thank you so much. Now we are still running some things, and I don't have the product right now. The edtech.
Okay. ఇది మీ చార్జర్ కదా Samsung సార్
Any issues with the team, building a team and like
Building the team, initially we had some problems, but the team that we have right now has been working with us for almost right from our inception, and the culture that we set up is wonderful. Right now we don't have any issues with the entire team that we have, and we are also working on a different flavor for the edtech product. That is, we are taking it to special children like autism, dyslexia, and other things. We are working with some teachers from Bangalore, Bombay. They are curating all the content and the product. We have shown the basic tech product to them, and they were very excited about what it can do to special children. Because technically, when a teacher teaches 4 or 5 children, it puts a lot of effort on the teacher to identify which child has done wrongs and then to correct them. All that we are bringing into AR, and that's going to help the teacher in identifying which children are, like picking the cards properly, and then she can focus on children who are not doing it well. So the productivity and the efficiency improves much better. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Mic, please.
Thanks.
Ganesh, get your mic.
Now to our main session, I would now like to welcome our speaker of the day, Dr. Deepak Madala. He has wide experience in design, development, and deployment of technology solutions. He is also a director of Alcove Partners, and he is a successful entrepreneur. I will now request our CEO of Arhab to take over.
మైక్ అక్కడ పెట్టేవా మధ్యలో పెట్టాలి.
So should we use this now?
No sir, you can place it on the table. మధ్యలో తీసుకెళ్ళిపో కెమెరా. Lower the height.
Good evening. I think now we have the real crowd. I know what you mean by the real crowd. The crowd that doesn't come for just for bag winners. So I really mean it. So I have no issues. I have no filters. So I was telling him that's how it happens.
The people not able to see the faces.
No, we will create a lot of interest.
కెమెరా దగ్గర పెట్టు.
So this is what happens at the end of the 6-day deal. I think this is a checkpoint as how many people are really interested in entrepreneurship. Okay. Doing like a 5-side chat that is like the story as a people from 15 years, yes, 18 years, more in various positions, in a lot of things, for the company, and for just like partners in crime, but doing things together too. We can come together, startups together, businesses together. So I'll start off starting right from labor from side. I know you've been very, we call it doctor. So because I'm still that kid in front of him because he's very knowledgeable guy, very meeting, very glad like me. So that's so my childhood Deepak, very studious, basically research, PhD in university. How did it go through? Was it anything of bit of iota of feeling that one day you feel there or because was it a radical thoughts? There's no surprise there. Since from what age, it was always like at that point in time, there was not like startup or I was startup company, startup business. So right from school, almost to a point where when I was graduating, I suddenly did not have a plan on what I was going to do after that. Everybody was going for campus interview, landing a job. I was so caught up in starting a company kind of thought, suddenly pushed. When I was graduating out of Rich, the idea was not to start up the company right after college. The idea was to go do my master's at PhD. But then I realized doing it right after my graduation was not a good idea. So I need to get some shop floor experience. So more of some hardcore shop floor experience. So
Until that point in time, I never thought I would go do one of the campus interviews in Pilani. But then I realized I didn't have a plan to do what I was planning to do. So I went inside in a couple of campus interviews. And since I was very specific about getting this shop floor experience, there's a reason for that. Until that point in time, when I did a check on myself, I realized kind of grew up in an environment where I did not have too many tough times, dealing with people. I was probably sheltered by my parent, my mom, and I didn't have an understanding of the real world, how tough it could be. I was fortunate to realize that I didn't have it. It didn't kind of come to me as a shock. So that's the reason I said I was going to go work on a shop floor. And all my colleagues at that point in time were obviously looking for IT related jobs in offices. And there were very few companies coming on campus who were offering jobs in their factory sites. So there was one. Fortunately, that was a company run by an ex-BCN. And one of the first questions he said is, I'm going to put you on shop floor. I said, I'd love to do that. That's exactly why. Now, he was kind of surprised, like, graduating out of Pilani now wants to come to shop floor. And the factory site was in Tarapur. This is like probably about 60 kilometers outside of Mumbai. Tarapur is famous for the Tarapur atomic power plant. So that's the only thing I heard about Tarapur. He said, fine, wherever. I want shop floor experience. I'm going a little beyond your question, because I started on the kind of the timeline. So everything was a shock from that point onwards. Landing in Mumbai and then catching one of those crowded trains. There was no way you could find a reservation to go to that. I was all like, reserve your tickets, catch a train, go there, and all that. So after you get a crowded train, with all your baggage because you're moving there, shout out. It wasn't even local. It was proper train going to Ahmedabad. So you got pushed out because it stops only for 3 minutes in that place. So the next day I go to the office. We were in the midst of breaking a union, labor union. You guys, I'm sure, haven't heard about labor unions, but they were big in factories and a couple of decades ago, and they're still big now. So the company was going through a modernization phase. And we used to make marine freight containers, the big shipping containers that you see on ships and on lorries. We used to make those. Until that point in time, our primary customer was Russia, which meant, the life of the container was very short. So they didn't really care about quality. If it lasts one trip, it was good. They used to carry stuff from Mumbai to Siberia. So if it made that transit one time, they were good. But marine freight containers are supposed to last much longer. So the quality was as per that, and the company was modernizing. They wanted to cater to European customers. So obviously the quality was not on par with them. So we're going through that modernization phase. That's the reason the founder of that company, who was ex-BCN, said, let me tap my alma mater to help modernize. As a part of modernization, obviously, the labor union that was basically in there were not really too happy about quality or productivity. So they were in the process of breaking it and forming another union, which was pro-management. So it was a big shock for us, and the kind of power they had over even the sea level guys. Even the founder had to get up and take notice when the labor union leader came, region leader came. And we being green out of college, five of us went there. We being green out of college, did not get up when he walked in. So some guy said, "You know who walks in?" I said, so he said, "Matre." Okay. You better get up. So there were a lot of learnings in that sense, and that's exactly what I signed up for, for that job. So 2 years was a crash course for me on how the world works, how the actual factory works, and all that. So post that, I was going as per my plan, so signed up for PhD, went to US. Always the thought was to come back, never work, but come back here and start something. But since the entrepreneurship bug was already there, so I was just not going to school in US. We are also trying to do, everybody I think who's familiar with US and India, the easiest thing is arbitrage, right? Goods or services are either cheap or expensive there. There's a cost differential on the India side, right? So you try and exploit. So services obviously is expensive there, so you try and do it in India. And goods are cheaper there; they're expensive here. So my first entrepreneurship was trading, essentially. Goods being cheaper there. I had a friend here whose family was in aquaculture for a long time, so shrimps and all that. And at that point in time, the feed for shrimp was, primarily sourced from Salt Lake in Utah, in the United States. So that was the only place that was producing the seed. And nevertheless, as you would expect, buying the same product here was, I think, 20x more expensive. They were selling it at 20x premium. So there's a business here. Yeah, I was going to school, but in US, it was easy to do things over a phone or over an email. You didn't need to spend a lot of time, starting up a business. So it was easy. During school, I just said, let's do this. Yeah. All we got to do was to make sure the transportation and the customs clearance channel was clear, and we had some learning. We lost a couple of, orders or a couple of shipments because it took too long sitting in the customs clearance, and these are temperature sensitive. And I think the first couple of orders came through summer, so that's problem. So that was the first thing that we did. I'm sure there were other things that we did even before that, but not worth mentioning at this stage. So this was happening. There was a time. Are you going to ask me more questions, or am I going to keep telling the story?
I'm going to ask you questions.
Okay. Because I'm becoming you here. Not stopping.
Go ahead.
Okay. So that was the time when internet. This was like late '90s, and internet was just about starting in India. 95, 96. And we had dial-up modems. I think we were migrating from 33.6 to 56.6 at that stage. That was the speed that was there. BSNL was the only provider. You had to really apply, get an account. Email services were very few. BSNL obviously had email, and it was so long that you couldn't remember the email. There's so many BSNL.co.in something and the city name prior to that. There were a couple of even Indian email. I remember Rocket Mail or something. Yeah, this was even prior to Hotmail, I think. So um, I was ready to come back, and we saw that as an opportunity. Internet. We thought it's going to be a business because everybody wanted to get on it. So we started the Class C ISP, Internet Service Provider, for the state of Andhra Pradesh at that point in time. And no, I didn't. I didn't. Yeah, so everything was going as per plan. I planned to go after 2 years. I did that. Come back right after my program and came back. And of course, people around me were saying, "Are you crazy coming back? What's your plan? Why are you going back to India?" Both in US as well as after coming back to India, people in India.
Unfortunately, I was very important from a back from the transdisciplinary went into human.
Right. So that was driven. Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually the choice. That the choice of industrial engineering was. I looked at the curriculum. Um, I had a lot of interest, but the programs for mechanical, I wasn't interested in computer science. So from mechanical, they were very limited. They wouldn't let me do a lot of things I was passionate about, but I wanted to learn. Industrial engineering program was very flexible that I could choose my own program. So I chose industrial engineering. I went and took courses in exercise and sports sciences. So that's how I got exposed to human physiology. And then I did take some courses in environmental sciences, so that gave me exposure of pollution and all that. On the computer side, I was interested in simulation, so I took a few courses on simulation at that point in time. Human factors or ergonomics was a multidisciplinary course at that point in time. That's where I wanted to do my research in because it was a multidisciplinary research. So I was looking at physiological effects of some work tasks on humans. And as per along that path, we did something called human computer interaction (HCI), which was all about creating web pages or creating information layouts that takes in the science in the sense it answers the question what's the right location for this piece of information on a page on a web page. Should it be up top, in the corner, lower bottom, and all that? What we call heat maps today, we used to do research in figuring out what's the right place for this piece of information. That's the reason I chose industrial engineering. Essentially, it gave me the freedom to pick the courses that I wanted to do, which has a little bit background in how even BITS Pilani did. In BITS, the first 2 years, every discipline does the same amount of foundation level courses. And then when you go into your disciplinary courses, it gives you the ability to do more than your discipline. You can pick your electives any one. So I kind of liked that and took that even to my grad studies, and that's the reason that's really. So we started the ISP. I think it was back in '98. Starting ISP meant we had to work with BSNL and at the local level, BSNL. So it was so new that we had to go to the BSNL here and tell them, look, we want connectivity. You are offering connectivity, by the way. We want to take that. So there was something called like dark lines and active lines. And for whatever reasons, at that point in time, the government priced the dark line much cheaper than a lease line. So lease line was with internet, dark line was without internet, just connectivity. So as business we quickly realized we could buy internet bandwidth much cheaper in Hyderabad than what Vizag would give us here. So we were already operating in Hyderabad. So we were buying bulk there. And then he said, okay, give us a dark line from Hyderabad to Vizag. Don't want to buy bandwidth in Vizag. You'll buy it bulk in Hyderabad. They said, there's no such product. Sorry, it is there. We couldn't, I mean, as entrepreneurs, we couldn't tell BSNL GM saying that, hey, this is a product you are supposed to be selling and you're not selling. So we tried to explain to him. Obviously, we are talking to a wall there. So we did the next best thing. We went and hired a retired BSNL GM as a consultant. So they talk the language, right? And he will listen to us because we are paying him. So we told him, go get this thing. So we went there, explained it to him in his own language, took a back and forth, and finally gave us the dark line. And then we set up our own hub here. The next thing was like selling the service. At that point in time, selling means sending people, boots on the ground. Have a marketing staff, ask them to go sell it, and like Professor here was talking about selling proposition or value proposition. So the marketing people were asking, how is it different from BSNL? It was already offering at that stage. So then we told them, it will have the least amount of drops, and obviously it's going to be much higher speeds. Because I was living abroad, I had access to a few more technologies which were still not exposed in India. At that point in time, there was one company in Boca Raton, Florida, who developed a modem that could be paired together. So it was like you could do 256.6 and get a theoretical speed of 128, which at that point in time was only offered by ISDN. It was like super premium service. Only companies used to buy ISDN, and we were offering that with similar, smaller analog modems, which could be bonded together. So that was also our unique value proposition. And you buy, two connections, and you can merge them, bond them together, and get higher speeds. Obviously, at that point in time, as an ISP, we were also offering some hosting services. Linux was the only service that most people could afford there. We were selling boxes, all-in-one boxes, again, importing from US. Slowly that went to cable modems. Next generation after dial-up was cable modem. Yes, sir. I think I'll pause here and let you ask me another question.
So you still didn't come to the economic story yet. Okay. So that was technology and not the case at example now. It's consistently changing. It's investing in your infrastructure, your thing, all the code and everything. That's not what happened for the TV viewership. Things changing down here. People eventually, the wired lines will go out of both probably. How do you keep up with the technology? Because again, costs, right? Investment and then trying to those investments.
We had a kind of a unwritten understanding, whether buying technology ourselves to offer it to the clients, or selling, technology to the. We always believe that buying cutting edge doesn't make sense for at least 80 to 90%. Cutting edge is always expensive. You got to be at least 2 generations below the cutting edge to really realize the value versus the money that you pay for it. So if you have the 12th generation or 13th generation chip right now, you're better off with the 10th or 11th generation. that has more value for money there. And for all practical purposes, it did everything that you want. You know, 13th and 12th generation was purely for, it's purely for marketing, guys, to hype. And, for a spoiled child to go to his mom and dad and say, I want the latest, and the mom and dad would have, okay, my sons I want the best for my son. I'll buy the best on the market, and he plunks in 2 lakhs for a laptop. Smart people would probably buy some 1,000 and be happy with it. Probably invest in RAM and invest in RAM and get the same work. So the other thing we realized is once we built, Eclair I don't know how, but we were finally convinced our clients to invest in technology first. So at that point in time, there was no cloud computing, and for different reasons, the customer didn't believe in shared infrastructure. So we told them, look, we have our infrastructure that is offering these services, but we know that you want more. And he said, we'll bill you more. Just that. And we used to pause, and the guy said, okay, if it's money, don't worry, we will invest in it. So we were able to convince him to invest in infrastructure, all those fancy servers at that point in time. These guys are deep pockets. Helps if your client has deep pockets, right? And for every other cost-conscious client, we would still say, for all practical reasons, not having the latest and greatest technology doesn't mean your services are going to be any inferior. If you want for bragging rights, that's a different thing.
I know it's long. I remember the Bombay story. I had one similar one, trying all these fancy business process engineering, management consulting stuff, did it finally, M&M Auto were they were losing market share, they were already going into red, from 52 to 37%, we were supposed to revive it. We did all the business process engineering, gave the great report, everything was fine, they wanted people to be out. The same day evening, we had 4 black cars coming in, they were coming down with guns and all that stuff, and here is just the same, this thing, we were sitting in the guest house and Anand Mahindra's nice guest house, and then we were sitting and then having our evening tea, not informals. And then this man walks in, we don't stand up, but our team lead, who is Milind Joshi, a localite, suddenly stands up and starts bowing and all that stuff. He didn't understand who this guy was. And then they say, Uto, Uto, Uto. Then we all stand up and they say, this is because the guns, of course, then create the fear, and then you stand up. And it was Arun Gavdi, right hand man of P. Dowd. He is the union president of the thing. It's like how dare you say 1,100 people will have to go and all that stuff. So yeah, similar experiences as how corporate life and what business plans and reality sometimes is the same. Now coming to your first venture to the shift to Eclair, when did that happen, and how was Eclair formed? What was the idea? And I know we later had sold it off, but want to walk us through that journey of what was the idea behind starting Eclair, and you built it 3 locations and then finally the whole story.
Money you made, I know you
So leaving where I left earlier with the ISP, we quickly realized in a span of 2.5 years, I guess, there's no money in it. Margins were cut through. There was a huge turnover of customers. So we just sold off the ISP. By that point in time, I had a few years in India, the millennium, so understood the local things much better. We were also able to build a network, like Ramkumar was saying, network. And our network was professionals, um, primarily chartered accountants. So, like I said earlier, it's all a question of arbitrage, right? Cost of services and products. That's how you build a business. So we realized that financial services were very expensive on the state side. And there was a niche which was like tax processing. I'm not just talking about income tax. We actually started off in something called earned income tax. So one of our partners was sent to US. Given, sent to scout for business and financial services. And fortunately, he had his own network to tap, and seems to be breaking up. Yeah. So, long story short, we got our first client who asked us to do tax processing. This was a time when services just got started being offshore to India. And certainly, we believed Vizag was a better place to start. None of my partners believed they wanted to work from Hyderabad. Yeah, we were all like, I was always a small town guy. I didn't want to go to the city. Same in the US too. I chose my university based on research and whether it was in a big city or a small town. So we started our business in Visakhapatnam, and again, internet connectivity was through STPI on a satellite. What the latency now probably is 240 milliseconds, and latency on satellite connectivity was about 800 milliseconds. Modems didn't work because for that kind of business, modems don't work. So we had to rely on leased line and satellite. So financial services is how we started our first company. It was called 24/7 BizServe. We ran that for about 5 years, I believe. We had customers in definitely in US, and then we had one Scotland-based customer for a short while. And I think during the migration, the millennium, there was this Y2K fever, right? Everybody thought everything was going to crash, when the clock turned 2000. So a lot of mainframe programming was didn't consider, a year of auto, and they thought it was going to crash. A lot of business opportunity came on rewriting the code. The code was in COBOL. I don't know how many of you remember it. Yeah. Interesting story at that point in time. To find somebody in that background, we had to go to RANL. I was the only company that was using mainframes to a large extent. So all the people who were familiar with it were associated with RANL. So that's the first company we started, 24/7 BizServe. That was a brand. We ran that for about 4 or 5 years. Then one of the principal, clients who had business in Florida wanted to see if they could buy out our business because they got started. The founders there were ex-consultants, before big four now, 3 years at one. And the partners who were chartered accountants were trying to get out of the business because they wanted to focus more on their professional practice than running a company. And we needed more people to be on the team to grow the business. And we said, okay, let's merge. And that's how Eclairus came around. Eclairus was actually the name found by our partners in the US. So Visakhapatnam was the first site that we started. Few months later, probably started off Calcutta. Calcutta was primarily pushed by one of the founders who was from that region. So he wanted to give back to the society there. So Calcutta was also pretty virgin at that point in time, and there was almost no IT services being offered from that. For some reason, that part of the country missed the entire IT revolution, the early part. Maybe it's still behind even now, Calcutta. That's how we started off for Eclairus. The first client was a client that we were servicing when my partner went to US and got it. So that client we moved on to Eclairus. By that point in time, I think there was enough backlash in US about offshoring. And since the client was a state government, they had some pressure to stop offshoring. So that business stopped there.
But you grew to be strong 2000 plus, right?
When I left,
800 people, you had Siliguri and you added Siliguri later. So growth and then buyout from Watson Towers. Largely, don't I know you cannot put numbers to it, confidentiality stuff, but would want to know because people big hot topic of the time is term sheets and validation, due diligence, term sheet, and valuation.
maybe I'll back up a little bit there. So we lost this financial service business. So that was, suddenly we had not much of business on, you know. So we kind of pivoted there from financial services to, we said, we look at a very niche market that exists only in US because of how the medical insurance works there, reimbursement administration. Although we lost the state, which was our first client, they became a referenceable client for us. So the next pivot business that we created, the first customer we went to was Merck. Merck Pharmaceuticals is like a 700-pound gorilla, and we were like a squirrel, I guess, at that point in time. Thanks to our marketing guy, he was able to even go to Merck and pitch our business. They liked it because we were operating in a very niche segment. They didn't have many vendors. They had the pain, but they didn't have a solution. Nobody was offering them a solution to the pain that they had. And for large enterprises, although because of the sheer size, they couldn't really go after every need that they had in the organization. They had to prioritize. Only the top ones get the attention, and those are addressed by going and getting some solution out. So, and what we were addressing was not really upcome. So they were instantly, hey, somebody came looking to solve this problem, and they were more than happy. But then they, as an enterprise, they had to check some boxes, right? When they finalized the vendor. One of the boxes was that somebody else used this vendor. What does that vendor talk about this user? That's when we went back to the business that we lost and said, "You be our reference to client." Oh, only because of the backlash they left us, because otherwise they were really ecstatic about the services that we brought. So they were more than happy to pay it. And we got the Merck business. So once we had Merck as our customer, we went to Novartis, another pharmaceutical. And it was easy for us. So we could say, hey, we offer the services to Merck. And they said, oh, okay, you can do the same for us. And then the next big client that we went to was Bank of America. That was even huge. This was in 2007, I believe. That's when the economy was full, Fannie Mae, Fannie, whole business came out, and corporations started failing. They looked at us, so by that time we pivoted again. We went from offering these niche services to something broader called consumer directed healthcare. Again, something specific only to the US market. So we offered them a solution. They liked it very much. They wanted to move forward. But then the entire economy collapsed, so they put us on hold. We came back 2 years later. They said, you can offer our services, but why don't we buy you out? So for Bank of America, adding us was like simple, for their kind of budget. So and it's not even the primary bank; like it's a division under subdivision, subdivision, which was doing somewhere about $150 million worth of business. They said we'll buy you out. But unfortunately, that didn't happen because by that point in time, we had already got business from Xerox, and we got business from the largest still privately owned company. So they didn't like us being bought by Bank of America. So we went back to the bank and said, keep you on hold. So we became their vendor. So learnings here is when you're working with these large enterprises, they can change the entire way that you operate. Until that point in time, there was nothing called information security in our company. Yeah. Well, we had some policies, some controls and all that, but nothing beyond that. And compare that to Bank of America. Just for information security, they had a team of 300 people. And out of the 300 people, 200 of them work on Bank of America's own internal information security, and 100 of them work exclusively for vendors offering services to Bank of America. So that was again, a big learning for us. We were a small company offering services to these large enterprises. So we had to learn what information security was overnight. Build all the controls, build all the policies, write the policies, make sure we have audits, make sure, because they used to audit us almost like 3 months, every 3 months, the first 3 years. And we reached the stage where they were comfortable with, and then the audit changed to like yearly. So we were growing fast, trying to offer services to enterprises. So we were burning a lot too. At that point in time, I think we went to the private equity guys. That was the first external investment. So they came in, they valued us at some number. We weren't too happy, but then we had to move forward because we were moving very fast. Our revenue was growing up almost double every year, and we had to keep running at that pace. We needed some money. So PE guys came in, and when PE came in, that was the first valuation. Some of us left at that stage. Kiran came out at that stage. And then 5 years down the road is when we got quoted by the bank again, and out of the blue, our CEO on the US side gets a call from Towers Watson. Towers Watson primarily business was actuaries. It was all consulting. They had realized by that point in time that they could only bill their hours at certain out. I mean, certain rate, right? That's not going to grow incrementally. So large enterprises at that point in time were looking for product companies. Product is where there's a lot of value adds, right? You know, you can price it multi-X and keep increasing it every year. So they came to us because they were building a product division within their company. It was a $4 billion company at that point in time, and the division that they were building was 300 million. But that 300 million being a product company was driving a valuation of 1.8 billion in the $4 billion company. So when these guys needed something, the rest of the company used to sit up and look into our requests. So Thomas Watson wanted to buy us out completely, so there was no more ownership held by the founders, so they bought us completely. So what happened after that is we were integrating with Thomas Watson. With any enterprise, integrating is a long drawn out process, and it's not a clean exit. So it's not like we sell our stake and come out. There's something called earn out. So for the founders, they expect you to stay typically at least a year. In some cases, on how closely you're involved in the operations, they want you to stay for 2 years, more likely 2 years. So they insisted that we stay 2 years and held back a little bit of the money to be paid after the earnout period. So during the earnout period, Thomas Watson, which was 4 billion, went and merged with another company called Willis, which was a Scotland-based company, which was another $4 billion company. So suddenly we became part of a $8 billion company. And obviously as entrepreneurs, now we were used to taking decisions. We were used to running companies with passion. We did a lot of employee engagement. We wanted to make sure our employees are happy working, create a happy working environment. We want to make our employees feel that it's not work. We also work. The motto was like, we also work. Now, it was not the focus of it. We come have fun. And as part of it, you work. So that was the motto for our people here. In fact, I think we were one of the first ones to coin the word chief fun officer. We didn't realize it, but then our US office said, you know what, you guys have been written up in New York Times. Apparently you started something called the CFO level, and we got written up there, and we didn't realize that. So we built a culture within the company. We built some very specific values that we all believed in. So when you're part of an $8 billion, nobody cares about this company, these things, right? This, culture and all that. You had multiple levels. At best, you could talk to a VP. Initially, yes, they would come work with us very closely, but then when you're part of the organization, and the VP used to be somewhere in the and those people used to tell us, do this, do this, do this. We were almost certain those things wouldn't work. How we've been doing things and certainly would not make any difference in being more efficient. So it was writing on the wall essentially. The entrepreneurial spirit is no longer there once you're part of a big enterprise. We didn't like it, so you're just waiting for the earnout period to end, and we just came out. Most of the I think the entire founding team came out. Due diligence was a long, drawn-out process. When you get bought out by enterprises, you get all these expensive lawyers, expensive audit firms coming in. We had our share of problems with the IT guys. We had at least 4 years of our business, being looked into by the IT guys. So that was a flag for them. what's here? Why are the IT guys after you? I don't know. Yeah, it was transfer pricing. Uh, Indian government, I'm sure everybody's familiar, has some strange ways of helping out businesses, right? Just as how BBC got raided. Uh, we don't know why that coincidence, you know. So they had something that was going to be closed in like a few months got dragged out to 9 months because of this flag. They had to go through multiple layers. Term sheets were pretty, relatively straightforward, but then the lawyers got into it and it got dragged out. And because of getting dragged out, the term sheets also were changed a little bit. The earn-out periods got extended. Believe it or not, I think the last tranche of money that they held, I got it 7 years after I exited. 7 years after I exited, they gave me the last bunch of money that they held back while they cleared all the things. So,
Valuation in X terms.
at that point in time, revenue, yeah, it was revenue based. Since they quoted us, we obviously had a higher say in it, and for them it was chump change. I think it was close to 5x times the revenue. Yeah, yeah. No, it was a product. We had our product. It was akin to how you have white box computers, but it still had Intel inside. So ours was the product that was running in all these healthcare companies. So they built their wrapper on it, but the engine was still Polaris. So, and that's exactly what they wanted. The Towers Watson guys, since all theirs were services, they didn't have a product. So they were not going, they were growing like 1%, 2% every year, which is big on 4 billion, right? But still they were growing at such small percentage wise. So they wanted product companies which would give them that multi-X year on year.
ISP, financial services, healthcare, or life sciences related to say, then into Alcove and then interview buddy. Do you think you did the right portfolio management of exits at the right time to move on? Because people usually pick up something and they get to be stuck with it forever. So, is it market or is it intuition? What made you make those decisions of exits at different points and enter into newer things?
So when I was talking about the earlier things about my education and coming back and starting the companies, I was using the word everything was going according to plan, right? I planned my life to go this way. After my time in these services and all that, that's when I realized you plan something, your life gives out something. Well, you can plan and then hope you fall around that plan. You're not so particular about whether it's going exactly to the T. So exit is something that was always on our mind. We were not the kind of entrepreneurs who thought we would build a business for life. We never had that mindset. Um, in reality, what happens is when you build a business, after a while, the business will take a path of its own, and sometimes that path of its own is detours from what you believed in or what you would like to be going forward. And that's reality. And that's the reason we always had an exit in our mind because we knew it would go in a different direction. And we thought the moment that we felt that it was taking us in a different direction, we would exit. But then we didn't have the luxury of timing it, right? And we had to find a buyer for the services. We
Early accepted.
No, like I said, the call was out of the blue. The buyer had a need for our services. We were not thinking of an exit at that stage, but it was in the back of our mind. So since it came from a very large enterprise and they were willing to pay multi-X, it was we thought, well, it's fine. Absolutely. maybe not. So post coming out, I don't know, the young guys wouldn't be thinking about it, but it burns you. Running a business, running entrepreneurs concerns really burns you. Particularly if your business is halfway across the world, meaning you do all kinds of odd times. Make sure you're talking to your client, you're talking to customers and all that, your vendors. So I didn't realize it when we were running it, but after I came out, I realized what I was missing out in life. Yeah. I don't think it kind of dawned on me at that point in time that I left home. We used to stay on the beach road, so we saw sunlight in the morning, and the next time I saw sunlight was the next month. So, and certainly I didn't like that kind of life. I said we're gonna take a pause here, do some things that were close to our hearts, more passionate about. Uh, by the time we reached that stage, like Ravi said, we've known each other for 15 plus years. We are part of the IT fraternity here. So you're saying we're running out of time? So we thought, let's put some money behind all the talk that we've been giving out to academia and the other folks here. We are part of the IT association. We are going to academia and saying, make sure your people are ready for the industry. You're building bridges with the academy, and that's when the whole entrepreneurship startup buzz came on. So we said, let's all come together, the five partners here. We said, let's put some money where our mouth is, what we are talking. And we came together. We were all we were from different parts of the country and even in different countries. But for whatever reasons, we chose Vizag to be the place that we live in. We're all very passionate about Vizag, so we were like Vizag's brand ambassadors kind of a thing. We were always promoting Vizag. So when we started Alcove Partners, it was like to have the ecosystem here. But obviously, since we are there to make money, we never said no to people beyond Vizag. But the focus was always, so we were spending a lot of time, doing this startup activity talk through the IT associations, building bridges, encouraging the students to the startups. And as a part of that, we found a student, do the basic work. He had an idea. He had a close to, he did good research, market research, like you mentioned, which was surprising. We didn't think people were thinking in those lines. So that kind of stood out for us. A young guy who's just out of college, he built a solution based on the pain that he felt. He got it ratified. With a couple of contacts, I think IIT Kharagpur. He won a competition there. I think he's gonna let me out. So he was on his way for his grad studies. We heard him out. We liked it. It helped that it was the same domain that we were also passionate about. So we said, okay, go do your grad studies. We'll help you build your startup. So that was our first investment. The other investment came through the network. Somebody was building battery solutions, lithium ion solutions, which is Mahindra in Bangalore. That came through the network, so we invested in it. It was not so much of a mentoring thing; it was more of an investment. And then, as a part of being current with startup activity, we went to a startup event in Hong Kong. We were interacting with startups there. We liked somebody there in Philippines, so we invested in that startup. Of late, I think during the startup activity, we went to a couple of pitches in Geetham. Yeah, found a few that we liked. It didn't move much, but then the guy, after graduation, pinged us again a year later and said, "Hey, I want to do this." Since we liked him when he pitched, yeah, here's a guy who was very mature for his years, very level-headed. He knew what was reality and what was hype. So that's when we started funding him and mentoring him on his startup.
Right through 15 plus years. We used to do test drives, whatnot. So where is Deepak heading from here? I know there's money making on one side. Now you make your money, you're sitting, investing, trying to mentor, build startups that you invested again, getting them, and then you're doing a lot of things for the good of the society. So what is Deepak 2.0 or 3.0 going to do?
What was the Rajnikant thing? What?
Matching to industry 4.0, okay? Matching to now Deepak 4.0.
So, when you spend the kind of time that we spent in this ecosystem, you know what works and what doesn't work in terms of where to put your energies. We are certainly not as optimistic relative to where we were like 10 years back in what startups could do. In terms of what we could support them and how they would react to it. So we still have a little bit of optimism because some of our partners are overly optimistic. Some of them are, we kind of balance them out. So for me, I would still love to continue working with startups, but I would probably be a little more picky in whom we would mentor and invest in. But then I would still set aside, 25% of my time just to spread the word about startups, trying to encourage people to think of entrepreneurship as a career, expecting zero from it. That's something that all of us are passionate about, encouraging the society to, because I'm sure you heard this, it's almost a cliche, right? India cannot build enough employment if we expect only the companies to, create employment. Every one of us should put on our, entrepreneurship hat and see how they can create employment. Not for social reasons, I mean, you could also earn money, right? So at least for that reasons, you got to start thinking about it. Otherwise, our country is not going to move forward, and that's certainly something that the government certainly realizes, and hence the hype about startups and entrepreneurship and how every organization is aligned to supporting the startups. You're not just talking about IT; you're talking about all government bodies aligning to support this entrepreneurship activity. So that's how I see it. Continue giving back to the society. I've taken a little bit of break, but the kind of time I'm spending here now, I want to get back into doing more of these public things where we go and talk to the young minds like we used to do a couple of years back. And investments, we are not here to fill a quota, right? So we are always open to support any number of investments that's required. We'll raise the money required. You know, we can always go beyond the 5 partner network to raise the money if there are enough startups that excite us. And we only invest research that they're offering, but a lot of it is also on the founder. Now, the energy he brings to the table, drive he has, and the quality he has. Got nothing to do whether he has the technical skills or not. All these are like abstract things that we look for. So far, it paid out. Now, our choice of selecting those parameters to evaluate a product.
Yeah, thanks, Deepak. Even on behalf of others for all the things that you're doing, being very patient, coming on Sundays, hackathons, awareness sessions. He will definitely take more of your 25%. Yes, he's you out. And let's see, giving you the advance thanks and official thanks. So 25% is not enough. Please move the number upwards. Thanks for being here. Thanks, it's been wonderful. Any quick questions, one or two for Deepak, or we can also over a network, you can talk to them. I think over a network. So yeah, Dinesh.
What is that as a Muslim entrepreneur subsidy? Is kind of a model yeah. The way we found it is slightly different from how you would want to go around doing that now. The classic example is, today we have access to more networks that help you. The example is the ASCOMs, and we have the SDK, Kalpatra. So these things are coming together, which will help the startup to connect with the network. So these folks are working with large enterprise, would normally not look at startups. Actually, it goes both ways. Startups not want to work with enterprises because it's a long sales cycle. You never know what's going to come out at the end. And obviously, the large enterprises don't think the startups can offer them anything. Purely because they are more focused in their own core business than trying to find solutions that change the paradigm. But these organizations help build that bridge. They are the easiest way for startups. So they are more than happy to share their problem statements with these organizations. So if your business is aligned with solving any of these problem statements, then you get lead. And like Ravi mentioned, the hackathons that we are conducting every other month, they are actually going to these organizations, taking their problem statements and offering them to come up with ideas. There's a group here, the Ultimate Creation, that won the last hackathon. Those folks are young guys. The way they introduce themselves to us is one guy works in central government, one guy works in state government, the other guy works in private. So they come together because they've known each other well. They came up with a solution problem statement. What came out of it? Company that offer that problem statement certainly look at that. They want to develop. But the silver lining is because of our interaction, we came to know about their capable skills. We have some needs through our own startups where we are trying to help people, those kind of things. So our network just bigger because of taking those. So it's a win-win in any way. Okay, part of it. So, never know where you're going to find it. You never know where you're going to find co-founders. that the startups are making with each other and figure out that I don't have this capability and this guy has this capability. I don't. Try to go for it.
Thank you, sir. Now we quickly move on to the next idea pitch by Mr. Avinash. Camera. PPT and face. Yes. Right. So, good evening everyone. I am Avinash from Ravi Institute of Technology. I am pursuing my BTech in Electronics and Electric Communication Engineering in third year. Actually, we have some idea on an aquaculture project. So, I would like to start from the basic of project. Basically, what is aquaculture? So, making food out of aquatic organisms is simplest definition for aquaculture. It includes fishes, shrimps, and crabs. So, on. So when we come to aquaculture, the recent studies says that by the time of 2040, we have nearly around 37% of food requirement will be done with aquaculture. Will be extracted from aquaculture. So there is lot of scope in aquaculture, but the main problem comes in aquaculture is that variation in these levels, which includes pH, ammonia, magnesium, alkalinity, and calcium. So due to these effects, there is a variation in water, and the aquatic organisms sometimes they get diseases, or sometimes they even die also. So due to this factor, we hear that sometimes we heard that aquaculture is a risky basis, and a lot of my parents think that aquaculture is not a good business actually, but that is not the correct point. Due to these issues only, the aquaculture is lagging. So the existing solutions are like they monitor the water, and if there is any change, they will use chemicals to reduce the change. So the first photo is like only pH meter. It costs around 35,916 rupees. So this is only for pH. And for if we want all-in-one pack, it's nearly around 90,000 per unit. So this is not affordable by everyone. So we are our solution is that IoT-based water health manager. This is our project name, and it costs around 25,000. And in this we have different sections. Input sensor section. Input sensors. These will detect the changes in value, and the control unit will turn on the chemical ejection unit when it required, so that the change will be reduced. We have mentioned this in a dotted line because the chemical ejection unit is what we can వాళ్ళ ఇష్టం అది పెట్టుకోవాలనుకుంటే పెట్టుకోవచ్చు ఎక్సెప్షనల్ కేస్ వీఆర్ టార్గెటింగ్ దిస్ ఇన్ మల్టీ జోనర్ areas, so that is one exceptional case. If there is any change in the values, automatically the chemical will be ejected and it will be settled down, and the message will be sent to user mobile. So 97% of people face these problems, and 61% of people are thinking that these solutions which already existing in market are not suitable for them, because mainly of cost parameters. As
investing 90,000 only on monitoring is so high amount of cost, and that is also a basic version of that unit. And if we go for high-end units, it will rate around 1 lakh 60,000 and it goes to 6 lakhs also. So, so we are reducing the cost, and we have went for so much of research near Narsapuram and all. 73% of the people we have met are likely to buy our product. They are giving a good feedback towards our project or product. So our main customers are, we are mainly targeting fisheries and hatcheries, because right now aquaculture they are not farmers not, they are not investing amount because of their recent losses actually. So we will be targeting them later on, but first we are mainly targeting on fisheries and hatcheries. And this without chemical ejection unit, we can also use in quality and water testing labs also. So when it comes to cost, we only for sensing monitoring unit we cost around 25,000, and if we want chemical ejection unit for 1 acre, it costs around 15,000. Yeah, when the total area increases, the cost will be increased. So, how our revenue works? Instead of buying 90,000 device, that is also only monitoring system, we will provide same features with the controlling system under 25,000 and additional 15,000 per acre. That is how we make how our pricing works, and how we when it comes to how we make money. Actually, this device cost only around 20,000. We are adding 5,000 and we are selling it for 25,000. So while it comes to 25,000, it is even 60% less than the main products which are available right now. So these are our key benefits. Cost of device is so affordable, and it is automatic device, so no need of manual work in that, and anyone can use it. No need of any knowledge in that devices or some. So our market competitors. The first device which I have shown you, that 30,000 pH sensing, that was of Hanna Instruments, and I have said that 6 lakhs device and 1 lakh 60. Those are from Shanghai Goku Instruments. That is a Chinese company. So after import charges, it costs around 6 lakhs. These are market competitors and our team. Thank you. Anyone?
So will it do the same accuracy of
Yes, right now we are in testing. Some it is perfectly accurate. We should test for magnesium and ammonia.
so do you have some sample data?
I have currently taken part. I will be doing.
Hi, this is Shravan. So a good idea. But basic element. One, you have not told about the number of cancers or that have it. And also when you said cost is 20 and you're have you taken it? First, when you add that, you ultimately might go into a loss, right? And especially when you are competing against big companies that you said mentioned, and when you are starting with a very low investment or very backing of a capital, it becomes very difficult for you to survive, right? Until you have a great logistics right from the beginning to the end. So I think those are missing. Maybe
Yeah.
you have to work on it and then you be able to have a complete picture.
Yeah.
Because if you tell a price, the market, and then go back, you're hitting on your brand value even before entering it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I will be working on that. Thank you. Any other suggestions?
I just
Thank
want to add to what you're talking about. Most of the people, what they miss out is life cycle cost. Like government might give a
1 year warranty and all this stuff. Cost of failures in IoT stuff. Because you're sourcing, not everything is manufactured. You're sourcing a lot of components. You might not have a backward this thing where if you're getting, let's say, sensors from China or Taiwan, or even costlier one, okay, and if they fail, you don't have a backup plan where it's replaced. You're getting where it's a cost for you. That goes into your life cycle cost that you have to handle. So you take all that. That's why the margins that usually people think that when they say 40% off and they try to push it out, are they selling at a loss? They're still not selling at a loss. Still, margins are, especially in the IT hardware and all that stuff, they're around at least 50 to 80% on the price, on pricing. So that's why they take into consideration all other factors of failures and other things. You can, so pricing, yes, I think.
Sure, sir. I will work.
And last thing, the solution that you're coming up with, this thing, have you found something I can talk with?
The hackathon winners. The hackathon winners.
Huh?
The hackathon winners are revealed.
Okay. Before closing the session, we'll have an open mic session. So to encourage innovative thoughts, anyone in the audience can come and share their ideas, startup ideas, or something like that. We'll have 2 minutes of time to do your elevator pitch or something like that. Anyone with ideas can.
Okay, why don't you talk about what we are now trying to do, which I said I'll pay you for that. Because that's a common problem across it. I have affordable solutions for what. Go ahead, I know you. One person.
Actually, that is some sort of business we are doing with the AU Incubation Center. So we will be monitoring the water value, water levels in a tank, and if the levels increases, if the water tank fills, the motor will be automatically off, and the water comes down nearly around 20 to 30%. The motor will be turned on. That we are planning in a low cost device. Actually, in market these are available nearly around 3,000 or 4,000. So we are trying to reduce the cost. We are currently working on that. That is, if
Because
anyone
every
wants,
apartment has this problem of auto switch on, auto switch off of water, then wanted them to next once they are successful with that, trying to extend it to common lighting, common area lighting, switch on, switch off, either just like smart autos. Yeah, the smart automation stuff, smart things. Either time based or again Google space. So trying to create for an apartment, the idea is finally lighting, water, if there's sprinklers, any other systems that are there in apartments, and automated probably an 8 or a 10 unit, 10 to 12, 8 to 12 unit apartment complex for about 3,000. So that energy management and any wastage with energy, water, and other stuff can be managed. That's the idea. So I'm throwing that challenge in. That's one idea.
Anyone with ideas?
It is already clear, we'll connect.
Yeah.
He's working with one that is already working. Working with one of the agri startups. That's the time.
Cost do yourself sort of thing. Is it again works on Wi-Fi or is it wired? And that's it.
Anyone with idea? I'll go ahead with my.
You don't know about it, huh?
Okay. There's a random idea I have got recently. As I'm interning at incubation, we provide spaces for paper space as 2,500 or something like that. The similar idea where I'm thinking of is where in the warehouse management, customers come to me and pay for only their space using it. If I have some 100 products, if I like is it? 50 of them are shipped already, but I'm paying for my 100 products. Rent I'm paying from, I'll pay for my 100 products piece. But what we are doing here is we are only taking the charge how much space they are occupying. It is directly integrated by the some technology or something like that. And also, what we are thinking of is the paint companies some FMCG products already know their order capacity in the particular city or something like that, so um, uh, they can ship their products before itself to our warehouse, so that we'll directly ship to the customer or the distribution channel when the time comes, or they if they wanted to ship the products in the next month, we can directly ship to them, and we can cut out the time, and we also provide some transportation facilities where hyperloop, but we can cut down some costs and burden on the startup who are working on the products or something like that. Yeah.
Warehouse leasing. Warehouse leasing.
Not leasing, as I'm saying, we'll only take as per the space they occupy. If they'll
You will buy one central.
central warehouse, and warehouse market is growing, it has 4.5% growth rate. So in India, what we are saying is there is no zone sector wise warehousing. They'll dump everything into the one warehouse, but if we come up with sector wise or segment wise warehousing, we can achieve the market or something like that. Yeah. Any question?
I think wholesale is a good way of
Yes,
saying,
yes.
but just not static. By books from our perishable largely, storage and cold storage is a big issue. Still, $1 trillion on one. I don't know who is already warehouses do this. Go and if you have done your study, but they don't do it below a specific thing. So if I have a large building, let's say of all this is the minimum. It's just like a hotel. Minimum unit size is one room. And if I want to lease or give one bed to one guy and another bed to another guy, how if they don't do it, maybe if somebody is ready to even say that, they don't do it. There's a minimum thing that they have. So they have minimum. It's like you can take multiples in that. The warehouse is 100 units. You can say 5 units from this state to this state. And if you extend, again the penalties and other stuff. Because it's there, yeah, it's also there. So that again you have to choose what's available. Containerized, bulk, pallet based, cold storage, all that stuff. So you have very clear which segment you really want. But again, if you say Vizag and Pharma, this is bulk. Again, go to a different destination and say Pharma. It could be packet stuff which is in boxes, which is tablets, vials, in cold store vials which are have go in a specific temperature, which is the IV stuff. Try and do a little deeper study as to where there is.
Okay. It's end of the session. I appreciate your participation in today's fantastic meeting. Your input would be help us in guiding for the next sessions. Any suggestions or what should I say? We are out of topics or something like that. So we have introduced this fight side charts, or we wanted to introduce some activities or something like that. So, any suggestions from your side, so that we can implement the further coming start of Saturdays?
The only thing is people are asking for the call of action, what they really want from us.
Uh, Probably I also say to the startups who like they'll contact me, but so I'll say to them, ask what you want or something like that. But they're missing that. I can't help it out. So, any other suggestions for some or any topics you wanted to be covered in the next coming startup project? Yeah, okay. Uh,
Can we have a talk on that? How to serve the compliances?
we did actually we did that. The company secretary with us. Probably it's very short of time doing again, but we'll see in the future also. Okay. There are few announcements like we are going having an ideas from on 25th of February. The closing date is 20th of this February. Many of the students can register with their idea and can validate their idea and can win investor support, mentorship, and incubation space over in Andhra University and with a few other ecosystem partners. And also, our next startup Saturday is on March 4th. And if in any of the newcomers, like actually we messed up today because of another event happening here. We also rushed today, so I apologize. I'm sorry for that, but uh, we think everything will go fine from the next meeting. So yeah. Additionally, anyone wanted to add it in the WhatsApp group so that I'll be sharing the updates and all. So you can contact me or the all volunteers so that you can be added into the. Just a minute. I am also sharing the QR code. You can scan the QR code and mark your presence over there.